Hello, I'm Joan Brown. It's my great pleasure to host this segment of the Marin Women's Hall of Fame show. Since 1987, the Hall of Fame has inducted over 140 Marin women of distinction, women who have made immense contributions to the county of Marin and its residents, as well as to the world beyond. Honorees have distinguished themselves in many fields: education, science, business, philanthropy, the arts, politics, law, philosophy, religion, and more. Each honoree has been a force for positive change in our community. It's a great privilege to acknowledge and document their contributions. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce Zara Babitzke, who is being honored in 2017 for her pioneering work in social change. So, Zara, in hearing you work with homeless youth in Marin, and in hearing things that they've said, they have said that you accept them where they are. There's no judgment. You're not looking for an end product from them, that you treat them as a human being. So we want to find out, this is what you're doing now, how you got there. So let's begin with where you began, which was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And I know that you have a twin sister and a younger sister and an absent dad. And so kind of tell us what those years were like.
Well, when my twin and I were born, my father was missing in action in Germany. So my mother didn't even know if he was living. A year later, she found out he was in a German prison camp. And we never saw my twin and I never saw our father until we were 2 years old when the war ended. So he came from a lot of pain and struggle, had a lot of addictions, and really couldn't be the father he was meant to be. Yeah.
So you've pursued many different paths, career-wise, education-wise. You've been a teacher, a lifestyle coach, a buyer in specialty stores, and you had a substantial career in social work, and you've studied lots of different things. How did these various experiences prepare you to work with homeless youth that you're working with today?
Well, what I know at this stage of my life is that everything I've done leading up to founding Ambassadors has been preparing me for this job, each one in a different way. And I would say the key would be, for me, was gaining confidence that I could do things that I never thought I could do, and never had anyone in my life to really cheer me on, say they were proud of me, or encourage me. So all of the paths that I took were in a way pushing me through the shyness that I had as a young woman, and still have to a large degree, and people don't believe it, but I'm out there in the world because I have a mission and a calling, and that is to not have any youth who is homeless and struggling without family support like I was, to feel alone.
From 1974 to 76, you lived in Shiraz, Iran, and that's a culture completely different from ours. What was the most important lesson you learned from that experience?
That I could live anywhere. I lived there at a time the Shah was in power, and there was a lot of hostility generally, and more specifically toward the Western businesses and cultures that were there to industrialize the country that the people hadn't asked for. So I saw what the Shah had done, not getting buy-in from his people, was a huge lesson for me. And so with the youth that I work with AHO, it's always about listening hearing what they want, not forcing anything on to them at all, but being there as a support so they can achieve their personal goals.
So in 79 or 80, along around there, you had foot surgery. And until you had this foot surgery, you kind of had doctors on a pedestal and had all of these kind of stereotypical things that lots of people in those days had about doctors without up close. And as you got to know them, you saw characteristics in them that you could identify with and kind of changed your direction for a while. And had you actually switching into pre-med school. So can you talk a little bit about what you saw in them that rang true with you?
Even as a little girl, I always knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't know what that would mean or who that would be with. And so when I met doctors one-on-one, like you and I are sharing today, and I had this impression that they all had photographic memories and were brilliant Einstein-type people, and learned that with the question that I posed to them, what does it really take to be a doctor? And one by one, they all responded persistence and determination and commitment. And when I heard what they said, I thought, well, I can do that.
Me.
That's me. So,
200%. Right?
200% for sure. Yes.
So you did pre-med.
Pre-med for 2 years, yeah. And I gave myself a goal that I would have to get all A's in all of these subjects that weren't my thing, but that's what I do to myself.
Still today?
Yes, if I embark on something, I fully immerse myself in whatever I'm doing.
So in the 80s, your sister, your younger sister, not your twin, your younger sister had a grand mal seizure. And this was a tremendous traumatic experience. And she had a zero kind of diagnosis. And you came in as the main support person and to support her and the family, and you found safe and loving homes for your niece and nephew to live in during this time. So can you tell us a little bit what the doctors told you, how you responded, and again, how this was a seed for your current work?
Well, when my sister was in the hospital and had brain surgery, at the end of the surgery, she essentially had no capacity. I was the only family, and I lived an hour and a half away with my own life that I was sustaining on my own without any financial support system. But I hit the ground running and was there for my niece and nephew, finding them essentially families that were loving, close to the home that they were used to, so they could continue to be in the school that they were both going to try and keep it as normal as this very unnormal situation was. And so really that was kind of beginning the seed for ambassadors, in that one of the ways with housing so critical in Marin that we've been able to help youth with housing in the early years was finding host families in the community that would welcome a youth into their home for a number of months to get stabilized. After my sister was moved to...
Well, the doctors told you that she would never...
Well, that's what I was getting to. She was moved from intensive care after 6 weeks to Valley Medical Center, where therapists and doctors evaluated her and brought me in. And in that meeting, which I'll never forget, an oval table, like 12 talking heads, said essentially, there's nothing we can do for your sister. She will never be a mother again. And as I listened to what they were saying, I was in shock and flooded with all kinds of emotions. But when I left that room, what came above everything they were saying was, you know, I really don't care what degrees you people have. You don't know my sister. You don't know her spirit. And I know if she gets the support that she needs, that she will be fine. And that's how I feel about the youth of ambassadors.
And just imagine what it's like for somebody to have someone believe in them that much. I mean, that really, not very many people actually get that kind of absolute belief in themselves from someone else. It's a wonderful gift. So you volunteered with Matrix, you worked as a social worker with the County of Marin, you worked with teenage youth who were timing out of the system with Sunny Hills. How did these social work kinds of experiences lead you, prepare you for what you're doing now?
Well, my work with the county as a resource developer for 8 years was a position that never existed before me or since. And it was a critical piece for preparing me for ambassadors. My job was to work with the teams from social service, juvenile service, education, and community mental health that were working with the lowest income, most vulnerable, struggling families and children in the county. And county services are what are called categorical, meaning they're within a box, and people don't live in that box. And what typically happens is they fall through the cracks of the system because they need something very specific to help them move forward, but the system can't provide it. So the teams from those 4 areas would call me when that came up, and I would go into the community where the family lived, introduce myself, not share the name of the family, but share that there was a family in their community that needed their support. And I'm proud to say no one ever turned me down. So I would work with an individual, a business, a faith community. So it got me very comfortable asking.
Yeah. And developing resources.
Yes.
Developing
Yes.
resources. So as many homeless people are, they have jobs and they are homeless. And this was your situation for 2 years in Marin. You survived largely by couch surfing and house sitting. How did this 2-year period affect your ability both to found AHO and connect with homeless youth?
Well, being homeless myself was a tremendous asset for what I'm doing now, because I have real life personal experience with the feelings that come up when you're in that situation. I remember thinking, why is this happening to me? I know I'm smart and so forth and so on, but I had drained my resources helping my sister and my niece and nephew all those years. And so there was a lot of feeling of sadness, confusion, judging myself that came up. So I understand where the youth are coming from, the feelings that come up. I also know that when someone reaches out for help, they need to be helped immediately, not through a phone call, but someone that's going to be there that they can trust and talk to in a way that they can begin to kind of share a little piece of what they're struggling with.
And I'm guessing the fact that you had that experience of homelessness, that they get that you get it.
They do. I don't talk about it, But when I meet a new young person in this situation, I don't see them from the circumstances they're struggling with. I see them already fully actualized. Of course, we do help with the essential resources, and the top three are housing, jobs, and dental care. We also provide recognition as youth are spokespersons for their experience in the schools and with community and political leaders, not just here in Marin, but in Sacramento before the legislature. And the top of the pyramid, as some of you may have guessed, I'm describing Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And the top of the pyramid actually came from the youth themselves. 4 of them came to me a couple years in and said, Zara, we want to start meeting on a regular basis and building community and design youth-led projects that will bring more awareness and funding. And that's what they've done ever since. So they're fully actualizing and giving back for the help that they've gotten from AHO.
So since the founding of Ambassadors of Hope and Opportunity 13 years ago,
Yes.
you have served over 1,600 homeless young people, housing, employment, scholarships, counseling, legal aid, dental work, and so much more. And in watching the clips of them, what isn't listed in this list of things that you provide is that I got this profound sense from them of your total acceptance of them, that that you totally believe in them, and that you will help them get there, and that they can get there because they're valuable people.
That's absolutely true.
Yay!
You know, I see myself in them because I came from a family that wasn't there for me. And we're in a world now that we need to help our youth at this critical juncture, because it's taken me 70-some years to get to actualizing. We don't have that time with the world in the situation it's in. And we can't count on government to do it for us. So one of the things I'm so especially proud of with AHO, in addition to the young people that are exceeding beyond any expectations they even had, is the wonderful 99-member Alliance for Youth network of partnerships of businesses, faith communities, individuals that help us provide comprehensive support. Everything a parent might help with. That includes birth certificates. Yeah. Some of our youth come because their parents have burned their birth certificate or thrown it away, and nothing can happen without that piece of paper.
How have you led the organization to succeed so well in its mission? And what is the core of your leadership philosophy? I think you've kind of talked about it during our whole conversation, but what would you say are the real core values?
Core values of AHO is just my own values about life and people. That what came up with my sister, that if she had the support she needed, she would be fine. Typically, people are only looked at regarding their current circumstances. They don't see beyond that to their spirit and soul, and that's where I go. And it's just a total belief, both from my personal experience, what I saw with my sister, and what I've seen over and over again in the miracles that the young people I've been so privileged to connect with on their journey to greatness.
When you were homeless, did you find it harder to connect to the spirit and soul?
Actually, I got closer to the spirit and soul. I started to see that my only home was inside me. And that although my life was chaotic from one moment to the next, and my work at that time was changing every day, so everything was kind of up in the air. And, you know, I tend to like to have control over things. And that really scrambled me big time, which I needed, you know, to loosen up and just start being more present and taking in what was around me in a more organic way from my heart rather than from my head and what should or shouldn't happen. So,
what's been the most challenging experience for you in your leadership?
Well, educating the community of Marin is one, because invariably when I meet someone new, they're shocked that they're homeless youth in Marin, and yet they represent a third of the homeless. And I do understand in many ways why people don't understand these young people exist in our community, because they're not causing havoc with businesses. They don't look like the urban homeless. They're trying to fit in. And because of that, and they're so close to their chest about what's going on with them, which only makes sense developmentally, they want to fit in. So even their dearest friends won't know that they're sleeping under a bridge that night or in the park and have nowhere to go.
So, in your opinion, what are the 3 top community needs in Marin County?
Well, more awareness about youth homelessness. And with, I would say the 3 key points in addition to serving youth that are struggling and don't have family support is educating the community. And we do that on many levels in the schools with community and political leaders. And hopefully with that education inspiring those that we speak to take action, some kind of action, because the youth that we're helping are the largest growing homeless population, and they will be affected.
Nationally or in Marin only?
Nationally. That have not been in the system, that do not have any funding streams behind them, like mentally ill youth have or foster youth have. So all of our funding comes from individuals, faith communities, businesses, and that's a double-edged sword, as you might imagine, but I actually have grown to love it because it allows us to be flexible and immediate and more present for the youth that we're here to serve. So we're not dealing with tons of paperwork and reports, and we're actually doing the work.
So, last question. What do you want to say to girls and women in Marin County? What can we do?
I typically don't give advice, as you might imagine, but what I can say from my experience is it's never over till it's over. Regardless of where you started, every job, every person you meet along the way is critical to helping you get to your calling in life, a calling that will bring the deep meaning and the joy and the love and the light in your life that can only come from serving.
Thank you so much, Zara, for sharing your stories and your incredible life with us. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in. The Marin Women's Hall of Fame is a project of the YWCA of San Francisco and Marin. If you would like to learn more about the Hall of Fame and our honorees, please visit www.mwhf.org. Thank you.